The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Yaron Brook Show on this Tuesday, December 23rd, and I apologize. When I set up the show, I coded in the wrong time. It was always supposed to be at 8 p.m. I put in 3 p.m. by accident, and luckily Shazbot emailed me, so I realized what was going on. I came in and changed it to 8 o'clock and let you guys know, but I screwed up. I apologize. Sorry. On the Yaron Brook Show, I admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys coming back a second time. So those of you who came back a second time, I appreciate that. Thank you. Wow. And we got Andrew's cooking the last few days. Andrew just come in with a super chat at $100 right off the bat. And we'll get to his question later when we do the super chats. But thank you, Andrew. He's setting the tone, so you guys can live up to it. Remember, the big fundraising show is going to be December 31st, but that doesn't mean we don't try to achieve our targets every day until then as well. It's going to be important. All right. Let's, what do we want to start with? Yes, individualism. So we've been talking a lot the last few days, last few years, last decade or so, about collectivism and the rise of collectivism and the rise of tribalism. And it seemed like, last few shows, all we talked about is racism and anti-Semitism and tribalism and collectivism and what is an American, heritage Americans, and it just seems like, truly overwhelming what is going on out there. And it really is bad. There's no question it is bad. And so I wanted to say two things. I want to say, one, I don't think all this bad is truly representative of most Americans. I think most Americans reject these kind of notions and don't buy into it. Indeed, at Turning Point USA, a significant majority, I think it was 87% of the audience, of the 30,000 people there, were pro-Israel. Did not buy into the heritage American stuff. Seem fairly sane when it comes to these kind of issues. So it is not yet the dominant view of Americans. It's not yet the dominant view of the left, and it's not yet the dominant view of the right. This kind of complete and utter tribalism and collectivism that we see from some of the leaders of the movement. And that also means that there's still time to fight it. That is, there are hearts and minds out there that we still can get to, that we still can access. So this is not a time to be shy. This is not a time to be silent. This is not a time to be worried about what you say and what you don't say. This is a time to fight. This is a time to get the word out there and reject the kind of notions that exists out there. And, tribalism is evil. Collectivism is evil. Anti-Semitism and racism are evil. And we need to just be very clear that is the position. And more importantly, we need to be clear about the positive. And the real fight is about the positive. And the positive is that I am, and I think most of you are, we're advocates for something, not just against something. We're advocates for individualism. We're advocacy for the primacy in morality and in politics of the individual. And America still is, but certainly was at its founding, and I think for most of its history, for overwhelming majority of history, America was the land of individualism, of individuals You know, the term rugged individual. The individual goes out there into the world and makes something of themselves. America was the land of personal responsibility, but not in the superficial sense, in the deep sense of responsibility for creating yourself, making a character, building a character, building a life, a business, a farm, a family. You know, it was about you taking responsibility for the things that you are going to do in your life and going out there and doing them. Not expecting the state to come in and provide you with, you know, assistance and help and bailouts and subsidies and welfare, and not expecting somebody else to be responsible for the education of your kids, not expecting somebody else to be responsible for your business, for your livelihood, but also not expecting somebody else to be responsible for your values. Individualism and personal responsibility is this idea that you are responsible for your values. You're responsible for identifying them, making sure they're rational and consistent with life, with the pursuit of life, and then you're responsible for pursuing them. And as a consequence, you are the beneficiary of achieving them. I mean, I don't think people have a real sense of what it was like to be an American in the 19th century. In many respects, really free. Free to go out there and make something of yourself, make something of your life, do something with your life, create something, build something. I was just watching a show, kind of a docudrama kind of thing. It wasn't very well made, but it was super interesting. It was about kind of the establishment of Hollywood and the movie industry. And it's just amazing. The movie industry was established by people who came from nothing, who had basically saw an opportunity, had a dream of what it could become. And yeah, there was some corruption in the beginning. There was like a little cartel established that had some protection by the government. And yet, most of these people ignored that, went on and did their thing, fought it. You know, they had to leave New York and go and make movies in Cuba for a while, and then ultimately cross the country to California in order to escape the rigidity of the East Coast to make something. And they were all people who came from nothing, almost all of them immigrants, who came to the country with nothing, and who built an industry like no other. There's nothing else like Hollywood in the world. I mean, when the first guys arrived in Hollywood to make movies, there was nothing there. Orange groves, lemon groves, and a tiny little town. There was nothing there. And within just a few decades, you know, the place was thriving and booming, and you know, thousands of people and construction everywhere, and massive studios. And so this country is a country of individualists. It was built by those people. It was built by immigrants and natives who you know, went out there and fought. Not fought physically, fought to make a life. And you know, they invented, they built, you know, think about Rockefeller, think about Carnegie. These were giants who came from nothing and who built massive businesses that changed the world. And think of that at a much smaller scale, but the same principle is how most Americans lived, because there was no option. Nobody was bailing them out. Many got onto buggies and horses and went out into the wilderness, into the Midwest and then further west and Oregon Trail, and many died on the way, and they had to fight nature and they had to fight hostile forces. And they settled, and when they settled, there often wouldn't be a neighbor within a day's ride. And they built, they created, they made something of themselves. And that doesn't make their great-great-great-great-grandchildren particularly American. It makes them, the people who built it and created it, they were real Americans. Whether their great-great-great-great-grandchildren are real Americans too completely depends on what they've done. Whether they've lived up to that individualism. And politically, what that individualism manifested itself is in a political system that protected your rights and left you alone. Go out there, do. Don't ask for permission, go do. We will protect your property rights. We'll try to protect you out there in the wilderness, but it's hard because, you know, there's not going to be a police force, policemen, you know, in every farm. There's not even going to be the cavalry in every outpost in the West. We'll do our best to protect you, but it's go do. Go create, go build. And that is the America. That's the America that's still, you know, still in the spirit of so many entrepreneurs today. That's the America of so many immigrants who come to this country to try to make a better life for themselves, are not looking for handouts, don't accept handouts, are looking to work and to build and create and to make something. They're running away from persecution, just like all those immigrants in the 19th century were running away from persecution, just like the Mayflower immigrants were running away from persecution. I mean, almost all of the immigrants to this country, with some exceptions, were running away, escaping a really bad situation at home and coming here to make life better. People talk, oh, they're only economic immigrants. Well, that's the immigrants you want. People who want opportunities. People who want to build a better life. People who want to create a better life. So, you know, it's stunning how today, when in a sense we are living off of, we are benefiting enormously from the country that was built on the principle of individualism, on the idea of individual striving, on the idea of individual responsibility for their own lives and their values and their morality and their character and all of that, that this people, their ancestors, are now saying, we're better Americans because they did something which we're rejecting. We're better Americans because we're now tribal, collectivists, which is exactly the idea that the Americans who built this country in the 18th, 19th, and much of the 20th century, those were the ideas that they were rejecting. Those are the ideas that they were running away from. Those were the ideas that they were building a country in opposition to, in contrast to. And now the heirs, I don't know, the people who, the great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren want to turn America into a collectivistic European welfare and regulatory state. And why not establish an aristocracy and maybe a king, and then we can be totally European, exactly the kind of environment that all those people ran away from, that this country was established in contrast to. So the fight is for individualism. The fight is that your life is yours to live as you see fit. The fight is that your values are yours, and nobody has the right to tell you they're unworthy. Nobody has a right to put physical, i.e. force, coercion, use force and coercion to stop you from pursuing those values. The fight is for our individual lives, not as Americans, as human beings. And America being the best representative on planet Earth in history, where individual human beings could manifest themselves, could pursue their values, could be free. So this country is about freedom. Freedom for the individual to pursue his values based on his reasoning mind, without fear of coercion, without force being imposed on him. And that's what we're fighting for. That's what we need to fight for. Can't hand this country over to the tribalistic monsters who are out there, from J.D. Vance on down to Nick Fuentes. All right, that is my little spiel in individualism. It's about your life is yours to live as you see fit, but living up to that, not using that as an excuse not to do anything, living up to that. And that's, if you want meaning in life, if you want to find meaning, everybody's searching for meaning. Oh, where's meaning? Let me find it in some other dimension. Let me find it in a racist, agenda. Let me find it in I don't know what. In my tribe, in my collective, in my genes. Let me find the meaning in my religion. No. You want to find the meaning? Your life is the meaning. Taking your life seriously is where you will find meaning. You will find meaning in living the best goddamn life you can live. That's the search for meaning. It's right there. It's you. It's your life. Only have one of them, one life. Every second that goes by, you'll never get again. No rewind function on life. No living it a second time. So be ambitious and go live it. All right, that's my motivational spiel for the day. The journey is the reward, and the reward is the reward. It's all a reward. The journey is the reward, and the values that you find, that you seek and attain are the reward. It's all a reward. All right. And now politics. As Z Racer says, welcome to hell. Well, let's start with a story that is kind of really shaking up the conservative movement today. Quite a bit. It's all over Twitter. It's all over the news. We've been talking about heritage for a while now, since Kevin Roberts, the executive director, the CEO of Heritage Foundation, kind of after Tucker Carlson interviewed Nick Fuentes, came out, basically swore allegiance to Tucker Carlson, refused to condemn the interview, refused to say anything negative about Tucker, and basically said that he is completely, unequivocally aligned with Tucker Carlson, always will be. He's a friend, after all. I mean, he later on tried to apologize and didn't succeed. Since then, 3 board members, trustee members of the Heritage Foundation have left. The anti-Semitism institute within the Heritage Foundation left Heritage, disassociated Heritage. We've also seen some significant employees, staff, like Chris DeMurth and Stephen Moore leave, and a number of other people. But today, we saw, this morning, basically 3 entire units of Heritage. 3 entire units. Heritage is massive. It has I don't know, 200-300 employees, and it used to have a very large budget. Well, 3 entire units. The Mies Center for Legal and Judicial Studies, we'll get back to Mies in a minute, the Thomas A. Rowe Institute for Economic Policy Studies, and the Center for Data Analysis are all leaving as units with leadership and employees. They're all leaving for another think tank, a think tank called American Freedom, which is a policy nonprofit founded by Mike Pence. It's run, funnily enough, by a former Heritage chief of staff. The leaders of the 3 centers are leaving with them, all going to this American Freedom Institute. Plus, as I said, staffers, more than a dozen staffers. Shockingly, Ed Meese, who was Ronald Reagan's, Attorney General, I think. Ed Meese, a long-time conservative. I'm not a fan of Ed Meese. I mean, he's a religious conservative. But Ed Meese basically came out and said that the Meese Center in his name, that he is supporting this move. Now, it turns out this has been in the works for a few weeks. This is called an Advancing Freedom Foundation, the Advancing American Freedom Institute approved the plan to take on all this Heritage staff. But to do that, they had to raise $15 million. They already raised, I read somewhere, 13 within 2 weeks. So there's a real appetite among donors who I think are leaving Heritage and moving, for example, here. And they're confident they can raise the extra 2 or 3 that they need. The Advancing American Freedom Institute, by doing this, has doubled its size, and it's now looking for, bigger downtown DC office space. So, this is really big. It's really big in terms of, I think, the shock to Heritage. Heritage was the conservative think tank, founded in the 1970s, and it became the institution, the think tank, the establishment think tank. It took a turn during the first Trump administration, and particularly with Kevin Roberts joining, to become, rather than, so for example, I'll give you an example. It used to be that there were quite a few free marketers at Heritage. I mean, real free marketers. People who believe in a free market. Many of them, when Heritage took this turn towards populism, took a turn towards Trumpism, many of them left Heritage and went to places like Cato. But Heritage is an institution, has been in Washington forever. It's been behind so much legislation, so many programs that the Republicans have proposed, rarely passed. Hey, look, it's not been a good institution. I've never been a fan of Heritage. In spite of the fact that it had some free marketers, it had a lot of statists. It was always religiously conservative. But all of that is now collapsing. I mean, Heritage is collapsing. And it's collapsing because it's taken this populist turn. It might be true that this kind of anti-Semitic, Groiper, racist, collectivist, tribalist mentality, maybe it's true that it's dominant among young Republicans. But young Republicans are not the intellectuals that man these institutions. Young Republicans are not who has the money that funds these institutions. Boomers have the money. It's what's behind boomers is millennials or whatever. You know, the generation behind the boomers are the intellectuals, boomers and them. And they're not putting up with it. They're leaving in droves. Now, this new institute, the Advancing American Freedom Institute, Mike Pence's institute, I'm not a fan of Mike Pence. I'm not a fan of Mike Pence. But because he's a religious conservative. But Mike Pence stood up to Donald Trump. He stood by him during a horrific first term. He stood by him, even when Trump did horrible things. But he drew the line at Trump asking him to do something that went against the Constitution. And for that, he should get credit. And this new foundation, this new institute, it's not so new, he founded it a few years ago, but this institution is oriented towards more free markets, less populism. It's oriented towards more constitutional studies. You know, one of the projects that was killed at Heritage, for example, was there was a proposal within kind of the economics section of Heritage to do a study on how tariffs were affecting every state, businesses in every state. And the leadership killed it because it would make Trump look bad. So, these are not people who are, they're not free marketers. They're not secularists. No, they're religious and they're more free market than Trump, which is not a big deal. But they represent the old line conservatives. Conservatives we hated and now miss. And look, the people who left Heritage are not never Trumpers. And it isn't really about Trump. They all support Trump. It's really about, is the conservative movement willing to stand for something, or is it a cesspool, just filled with bigots and conspiracists and Qatar First people? This is from a tweet by Ilya Shapiro. I mean, these are not, it's not a new free market bastion that Mike Pence has established. It's like conservative in the old sense of the term, not in the J.D. Vance sense of the term, not in the integralist sense of the term, not in the racist anti-Semitic sense of the term. But it is showing that, the conservative movement is going through real changes, real challenges. I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of this. I mean, Ed Meese wrote today, I'm proud to announce Advancing American Freedom as the home of the new Ed Meese III Institute for the Rule of Law. AAF has already established itself as a leader in the conservative movement. Remember, this was at Heritage. Meese used to be part of Heritage. He personally, I am confident that the lawyers and staff in the Meese Institute will continue to play a leading role in advancing the conservative legal movement in terms of their scholarship and by working with allies to achieve our mutual objectives, educating the general public about important legal issues. I mean, this is the thing. I don't like Ed Meese. I've never liked Ed Meese. These are the kind of religious conservatives we've always despised. But things have gotten so bad at Heritage that these guys can't stand it even. It's become such a cesspool that these guys can't stand it. Now, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting if Kevin Roberts survives. Can he survive? Will he survive? To what extent is fundraising going to plummet? Who else is going to leave? Is there anybody left? Is the leadership in Heritage going to flip and go back to kind of original conservative, I'd say principles, but it's hard for me to associate conservatism with principles. So that's where we are. This is kind of you saw that on the Turning Point stage. You saw some of the fighting going on, but a lot of the fighting is also going off stage, and it's not just between, I don't know what Ben Shapiro is. Maybe Ben Shapiro is more aligned with Mike Pence, religious conservative, although Ben Shapiro is probably more free market than Mike Pence. And Ben Shapiro, just like Mike Pence, supports Trump up to a point, although Mike Pence did say he would not vote for Trump. He had an inside look at how anti the Constitution Trump actually was. It's going to be interesting to see how the conservative movement moves forward from this point, or to what extent did it splinter. All right. The Supreme Court today came out with a ruling, which is a real blow to the Trump administration. In a 6-3 decision, the court ruled against the Trump administration's deployment of National Guard to Chicago in order to protect and support operations carried out by ICE. Let me just see. The court ruled, and I'm quoting, before the president can federalize the Guard under, I guess, Section 12406, Part 3, he likely must have statutory or constitutional authority to execute the laws with the regular military and must be unable with those forces to perform that function. So can't perform the function with existing forces, must use the military, and for that he need either constitutional or statutory authority. At this preliminary stage, the government has failed to identify a source of authority that would allow the military to execute the law in Illinois. So the president has not invoked the statute that provides the exception to the posse communicados, that do not use the military inside cities, and he's not given a reason why he has to use the military in this case. Now, this is a huge blow to Trump. Although you did have 3 conservative justices, Alito, Thomas, and Gorsuch. I'm really disappointed in Gorsuch. But you had 3 of the very conservative justice vote against the majority, but a 6-3 majority ruled that the president was exceeding his authority. And I think it's great news. It means the president can't just deploy National Guard wherever he wants. He can't just federalize it. He has to justify it. If he's going to justify it, he's going to have to invoke, legislation, invoke an emergency. Now, he might do that, but then that could be questioned constitutionally in terms of whether he was invoking it legitimately. But he would have to invoke the fear of, uprising, resurrection. He would have to claim that these immigrants are somehow causing an insurrection. Did I say resurrection? That's pretty funny. Insurrection. Kavanaugh, then, he penned a concurring opinion, and then he goes out of the way to pen a footnote that is not really having to deal with the case at hand, but just so ICE knows. And, this is what he writes. This is the footnote. The state's opposition to deployment of National Guard appears to stem in part from the state's underlying objections to activities of federal immigration officers when they make immigration stops and arrests in Illinois. The state and the government disagree about whether the immigration officers have violated the Constitution in making certain immigration stops and arrests. And this is the important section. The basic constitutional rules governing that dispute are longstanding and clear. The Fourth Amendment requires that immigration stops must be based on reasonable suspicion of illegal presence. Stops must be brief. Arrests must be based on probable cause. And officers must not employ excessive force. Moreover, the officers must not make interior immigration stops or arrests based on race, or ethnicity. The Constitution prohibits selective enforcement of the law based on considerations such as race. He's quoting from another case. This application does not require us to delve into the parties' underlying disputes and to determine whether any particular immigration encounter or series of encounters in Illinois has violated these basic constitutional principles. That's in his concurrence. But he's basically saying you have to have reasonable suspicion of illegal presence that cannot be based on race or ethnicity. The stops have to be brief. The stops we're seeing are not brief. The arrest must be based on probable cause. Where's the probable cause in most of the videos I'm seeing of these arrests? And they must not employ excessive force. Huh. So, I mean, this is just a concurrence it's a footnote in a concurrence by Kavanaugh, but he's sending a signal. And I think the signal is, and it's going to be, is that there are going to be lawsuits against ICE for around all these things, around, arrests, stopping based on arrests that are not based on probable cause, no reasonable suspicion, the briefness of the stops, and excessive force. He's basically giving lawyers a menu of items by which they can challenge ICE. And I think you'll see a lot of arrests now, both of immigrants, illegal immigrants, let's say, but also people who've been arrested by ICE, not arrested, detained by ICE, who are citizens. So it's not the last time the Supreme Court is going to step in and discuss these kind of issues. I really, really, really hope that the Supreme Court reins ICE in. It's the only hope we have. Nobody else is going to rein ICE in. I really hope they rein ICE in, and sooner rather than later. But step number one, no protection from the National Guard unless Trump invokes a statute, which he might. All right, we will continue to follow that story. I do expect, I guess, by the end of the year, so really soon. If not, then early in the year, Supreme Court to rule on the issue of tariffs. Indeed, many people expected when they heard that the Supreme Court was issuing an opinion today. Many people assumed that it was the tariff issue. So we're just going to have to wait a little longer to find out about the tariff issue. I'm a little worried. I really hope Gorsuch doesn't disappoint here. I mean, he's the one guy I have some really respect, and I really hope that he. It seems like he and Thomas and Alito are willing to give the executive branch a huge amount of leeway, and that surprises me. I really thought that Gorsuch was a separation of powers guy and would really stand up for the principle of separation of powers. Not seeing it right now. All right. CECOT, I don't know how it's pronounced. CECOT. CECOT is the prison the high security prison in El Salvador, to which the United States deported 252 Venezuelans. What was it, in April? This is the conditions of this prison, the way they were treated in this prison, was the subject of a 13-minute episode of 60 Minutes, which we talked about yesterday, was killed by Barry Weiss yesterday. It seems, though, that on Sunday, it seems, though, that Barry Weiss didn't realize that the episode was going to be airing in Canada anyway. That is, that her killing it in CBS didn't kill it for Canada. And indeed, it aired in Canada. And it was released as a video on, I don't know, lots of platforms all over the place. You can find it on Twitter. You can find it elsewhere. And everybody's seen it now, right? And probably more people saw it now than would have seen it at 60 Minutes because of all the hoopla about the whole issue. And of course, there's a real question here of the First Amendment and to what extent did the administration require this to happen. The 13-minute piece is very damning. This prison was a torture prison. The prisoners were tortured. They were beaten. They were held under subhuman conditions. It turns out a significant number of them, of the 252, over 50, were not illegals, should not have been deported. Indeed, if you remember, the Supreme Court had claimed that in a 9-0 decision, that sending them to this prison had violated due process laws. You know, some of these people had no criminal record. Significant number of them had no criminal record, none at all. And again, they were sent to the most brutal jail in El Salvador because they had tattoos or because ICE didn't like them, or, you know, they were just, ICE wanted to see what they could get away with. I mean, cruel and inhumane and just horrific. And the Trump administration doesn't really care. Now, about 4 months afterwards, after these people had been there for 4 months under these brutal, horrific conditions, and I know they're not heritage Americans, so a lot of people out there don't care because we only care about heritage Americans. But these are human beings who'd done nothing, at least most of them, had done nothing to deserve this kind of treatment. After 4 months, the Trump administration did arrange for Venezuela to release 10 Americans, and these prisoners were sent from El Salvador to Venezuela. I don't know exactly how all that worked, but they were released ultimately. Luckily, they're not still there. But the very fact that America did this, it's shameful. It's shameful and really disgusting. And nobody's going to pay for it. Nobody's going to suffer for it. None of the decision makers. ICE has only become more emboldened. Z-Racer says this is evil shit. Yeah, this is evil shit. And the people committing the evil shit are getting away with it. They're literally getting away with it. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. Because it's a bunch of illegal immigrants or just people who we don't like. Yeah, they were jailed and tortured because they looked like criminals. But even if they were criminals, we have due process in this country. We don't send criminals to be tortured. We don't send criminals to foreign jails where we know they'll be tortured. Now, other people have been sent, other illegal immigrants have been sent to countries in Africa where who knows what happened to them? Who knows if they survived that? Countries where civil wars are going on, countries that, because the U.S. government basically bribed these countries to take these deportees. It's just unbelievable. All right, from the horrifically evil to the comically evil. President Trump yesterday reasserted that the United States needs Greenland for its national security and said that he is appointing a special envoy to lead the charge for taking Greenland. Trump named Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, on Sunday, as a special envoy to Greenland. Now, Denmark says, we don't want this. What are you talking about? Greenland's not for sale. Leave us alone. And the Greenland said, we're not interested in this. Stay away. Trump has even suggested that it might be taken. We need Greenland, he says, for national security, not for minerals. If you take a look at Greenland, you look up down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need it for national security. We have to have it. It's just unbelievable. Landry, governor of Louisiana, says it's an honor to serve in this volunteer position to make Greenland a part of the United States. This in no way affects my position as governor of Louisiana. So he doesn't expect this to be a full-time job, I take it. Now, it's true. Greenland does have a strategic location. It has a real value from a national defense perspective. But Denmark, which governs Greenland in a sense, Greenland's kind of an autonomous region of Denmark, is a member of NATO. If, as a leader of NATO, the United States thinks NATO needs to have a bigger presence in Greenland or do something about Greenland, the United States can do it. But Trump just wants land. He wants stuff. He suggested at some point that, force might be okay in order to take it over. It's that important. The people in Greenland not too happy. People in Denmark not too happy. But it is what it is. Trump, yesterday as well, announced to the world that the Navy is going to be building a new class of battleships. Battleship. Do you guys play Battleship when you were kids? That's a fun game. A new class of battleship, which are going to be a part of a new golden fleet that the Navy is establishing. This new battleship, it's not really a battleship, but anyway, he called it a battleship, is going to be named a Trump class. It's going to be a whole class of battleships called the Trump class battleship. It's going to be beautiful and sexy. It's a battleship with sex appeal. Indeed, Trump has said that he is going to be involved in the aesthetic design, I'm not kidding, of the battleship because he has a good eye for aesthetics. And he wants to make sure that the ship is a cool-looking ship. And it has to be super powerful. So this battleship, Trump-class battleships, are going to have nukes on the battleship, ready to launch. Now, the United States has taken nukes off of ships because it doesn't make any sense. It makes sense to submarines, but they're not needed in ships, and they're just it poses a real danger if the ships are attacked and blown up. It's not a battleship. It's a destroyer. Now, Trump also said that he expects the first one to roll off in 2.5 years. I don't think the Navy could design a screw, never mind build it, in 2.5 years. They just canceled a bunch of projects because they couldn't meet deadlines and they couldn't build them. Last week they announced a commission of a new class of frigates. This is this is going to be a destroyer. And look, it's absolutely true that the Navy ship are getting old. But it's also true that one has to really think about what a modern Navy needs to look like. How a modern Navy is going to cope with the hypersonic missiles that China has. They can blow a ship out of the water fairly easily. The United States has currently no ship-based anti-missile technology to take out hypersonics at the speeds the Chinese have, at the speeds that China can deploy them. So, the United States has a real strategic problem. It needs a new Navy. But the Navy has shown immense, incompetence in actually building ships, immense incompetence in getting them deployed. And there is the strategic question of, if you look 10 years down the road, what kind of Navy does the United States need? Does it need big old battleships with nukes on them? Or does it need smaller ships, stealthy ships, drone ships? I mean, these are kind of deep, important. I don't have the answers. I'm not a strategist in the Navy. But the point is that somebody has to do that thinking. We've got a Secretary of Navy who has no clue. We've got a Secretary of War that is not a strategic thinker. They fired a lot of the generals, so who knows who's left. Trump is not a strategist. It really, really worries me that at a time where we really do need to revamp the Navy, we really do need to think strategically about the threat that China poses, we have a military, a Navy, and a White House dominated by incompetent fools. I mean, Trump has for years been complaining about the Navy and its ships. Not that they're old, not that they're ineffective, not that they don't match up well with the Chinese, not that strategically they're not aligned with how we would fight a modern war with China. No. He has for years been complaining about how terrible looking they are. I mean, in his first term, he called for a return to steam-powered catapults to launch jets from aircraft carriers and complained about the aesthetics of the Navy's destroyers. This is from a Wall Street Journal article. He says, we're desperately in need of ships. Some of them have gotten old and tired and obsolete, and we're going to get the exact opposite direction. 100 times more powerful, 100 times more powerful than any battleship ever built. This is a Trump class. As I said, he's going to be involved in aesthetic design. There's some pictures that they released. They do look pretty sleek, for what it's worth. I don't know how functional they are. They look kind of sleek. But what you need today is ships that are designed to match up with the Chinese threat. That's what you need. And there's no reason to believe that this is it. All right. Let's see. I mean, I think much of American naval doctrine has to be rethought in the age of drones, in the age of hypersonic missiles. Unless they have a secret weapon out there to knock down the Chinese hypersonic weapons, the U.S. Navy is in deep trouble. All right, I wanted to mention one other weapon system that the U.S. Army has and Navy have announced, made public for the first time. They did it on December 12th, but I haven't had a chance to talk about it. This is a new hypersonic missile that the United States, a long-range hypersonic weapon called Dark Eagle, that is has. I'm just quoting from the press release. The responsiveness, the maneuverability, and survivability of hypersonic weapons are unmatched by traditional precision strike weapons. That's absolutely true. And the United States has fallen behind both Russia and China, but particularly China in hypersonic weapons. And this is one of the responses. I assume there are many other in various stages of development that are going to be responses to the Chinese challenge. So this is a intermediate range boost glide system. It features a booster rocket that carries a hypersonic glide body housed in its nose cone. Once the booster rocket reaches a predetermined altitude and velocity, it separates, and from the glide system separates from the booster and begins its glide phase, descending towards the target while trading altitude and speed for speed and maneuvering at hypersonic velocity. So it can move even though it's going at hypersonic velocity. And that's what makes it, right now, really, really hard, if not impossible, to shoot down. The missile is claimed to have a range of probably 2,000 miles and speeds that exceed Mach 5. By some estimates of some people, it will exceed Mach 10. They've done some calculation, and it's at least Mach 10, maybe Mach 13. So yeah, I mean, it's not a very big missile. The missile weighs the total missile weight is about 15 to 16 tons. The length is approximately 11 to 14 meters. The diameter is about 0.876 meters. And the extremely high impact speed of the warhead, is what creates a huge amount of damage rather than the explosion. It's built with lots of fragments. The explosion, and because of the speed of the impact, these fragments stagger across a wide area. So this thing would cause massive damage. This is particularly, I think, geared towards destroying air defense systems like the S-400 and maybe the S-500 that the Russians have. Israel's managed to deal with those even without these kind of advanced missiles. All right. What else did I want to talk about? Okay, gold. Yeah, I mean, we keep tracking gold and silver, and the price just keeps going up. It keeps going up. Gold it went over 4,500 yesterday. It was still over 4,500 today, last time I looked. Silver is at all-time records. And it's tough to understand exactly why. Price inflation and monetary inflation are not particularly out of control. It's not clear what markets are pricing when it comes to gold. It's not inflation. It's not the devaluation of the purchasing power of the dollar. The dollar's purchasing power has not gotten that bad. Indeed, gold's purchasing power has gone through the roof in a, almost absurd kind of way. It used to say that an ounce of gold could buy a suit in the 70s, it could buy a suit in the 80s, it could buy a suit in the 90s. But now an ounce of gold is 4,500. It can buy many suits. So, the only thing that makes sense to me is they're expecting this is a hedge against major macroeconomic, major economic collapse, major economic destruction. But then why is the stock market going up? And why are interest rates, not moving that much? And are there no other indicators that the world is coming to an end other than the price of gold? So it's hard to fully understand what's going on here, but it is something to watch. It is a indicator of risk. It's interesting who's buying: central banks, individuals. It is true that right now Bitcoin is being flat, down for the year, down about 13% for the year, and flat since it came down off of its peak of 124. It's now between 85 and 95. It kind of bounces around, mostly in the high 80s, 80,000s. And I don't know, maybe this is, you'd expect, again, people view Bitcoin as a hedge also against the end of the world. It doesn't seem to be functioning that way. It's not correlated right now with gold. So I don't know what the deal is with gold. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Dollar is going down a little bit, but not by much. And again, the purchasing power of the dollar is not going down much in terms of goods and services, which is what matters. So I have no explanation. I'm sure that people out there would be happy to explain it to you. But this doesn't track price inflation. It doesn't seem to be tracking monetary inflation. I don't think M2 is going up by this amount. I don't think any of the M's, which are a measure of monetary inflation, are going up like this. So maybe they're afraid of war. War is good for gold, but then it's all priced in already. Gold is up almost 70% this year. 70%. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know of any period that did not have high monetary and price inflation where gold went up this much, this quickly. But, where we have it. Windmills, Trump administration is canceling 5 big offshore wind farms. I think because Trump doesn't like that they kill the birds. I don't know. But the Trump administration announced it was pausing, effective immediately, leases for 5 large offshore wind farms being built on the East Coast. The Department of the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum cited emerging national security risks. Interesting. What's the national security risk? That would be interesting. I mean, I hate wind farms. Wind farms are ugly, and they're stupid, and they don't make any sense, and it's subsidized, and it's intermittent, it's unreliable. So I'm glad that they're being killed, but I do not like the government using emerging national security risk. We have to invade Greenland, stop immigrants, and tariff the hell out of you. And by the way, those wind farms, all in the name of national security, we have to tariff toys so that you can only have $3 instead of 27. What the hell? Anyway, these are all off New England, New York State, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Virginia, so not all New England. They were supposed to have about 5.8 gigawatts that they would power a lot of homes when the wind was blowing. Probably a very expensive rate. So hard to tell exactly what's going on here, other than we know that the Interior Department and the Energy Department and Trump himself are pretty hostile to wind farms and are dedicated to killing them. All right, some good news. Good news. For those of you who have not yet tried GLP-1s because they were expensive and because they required you to inject your stomach with the drug, the FDA has just approved a pill, a Wegovy pill. So instead of having to inject, you can now just take this pill. I mean, GLP-1s are basically considered these days a miracle drug. They significantly reduce appetite, and by reducing appetite, they people lose weight. It's the first time where you're seeing real sustained long-term weight loss from a pharmaceutical with very few side effects, very few side effects. But in addition, and not just because of the weight loss, GLP-1s seem to be good for diabetes. They seem to be good for heart disease. Probably no impact on from what I saw, on dementia. But heart disease, diabetes, these seem to be amazing drugs that have a huge impact on can have a huge positive impact on our lives, particularly if you're overweight. This is a way to lose weight without being. I mean, the thing is, it stops you from feeling hungry, which is fantastic. I hate feeling hungry, and I'm hungry all the time. I could eat nonstop. So the idea of being able to take a pill and not feel hungry is brilliant, and just eat what you need to eat is just amazing. Anyway. The drug is out. I don't know if it's available for microdosing, which a lot of people are doing with the injections, but we will find out. And Eli Lilly is a competitor to Novo Nordisk, which is putting out this drug. Eli Lilly also has a pill. They expect their pill to be approved by March. The starting dose of the pill is going to be $149 a month, which is significantly less than what the injection was going for. And Eli Lilly is going to introduce their drug, and there's going to be competition, and the price will come down. It's also a question of what the dosage is, and whether, again, you can microdose. That is, can you cut the dose? Can you split the dose in two? How is this exactly going to play out? We will see, but I will let you know if I find out. But I am generally excited about innovations in biotech, and one of the most impressive innovations in the drug space over the last few years, maybe decades, have been these GLP-1 drugs. Now, we will see if there are long-term negative effects, but so far, so good. So far, so good. All right, that is the news. Wait a second, I had one. Did I have one other? What else did I have? That's the same story. Since we're talking about drugs, I had this story. So one of the leading scientists in the United States on mRNA vaccines, which can be used for cancer, but also can be used for other infectious diseases like COVID, like the flu, like bird flu if we ever get in the future. But mRNA technology, which is pretty incredible in terms of the potential applications that it has. mRNA technology, according to MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, is evil and bad and needs to be stopped, and funding is being stopped. And generally, the sense is that new mRNA drugs, new mRNA vaccines that might come out will not get FDA approval because the FDA is anti-vaccines and anti-mRNA. So one of the leading scientists, a man named Hu Haitao, who emigrated to the United States and has had a career in the United States and has done incredibly well in the United States, whom colleagues have said loves living in the United States and would want to stay in the U.S., given the hostility of U.S. authorities to mRNA, has packed up his stuff and is leaving a tenure-track position at a major U.S. research institution to go and work in China. We've got a brain drain going on in the wrong direction. In the wrong direction. Very troubling. But this is the consequence of endorsing irrationality. All right. Let's see. We have super chats. We're doing fantastically well in the super chats. Thank you, guys. A lot, like $300 super chats and a $50 and then a few $20. Just brilliant. And then a bunch of 5 and 10 ones. So thank you. I wanted to remind you all of the December 31st New Year's Eve show. They're encouraging everybody to show up at least for a little bit live, for a portion of it live, so that you can contribute and make it a big fundraising success. We're trying to raise a large amount of money. I will let you know as we get closer how much exactly. I need to figure out how much it needs to be in order to at least match the super chats that we did last year. Let's see. Remind you that Hendershot Wealth, oneword.com/YBS, you can find information about products that can significantly reduce your capital gains liabilities. If you have a lot of stock that is appreciated, let's say you bought NVIDIA stock way back, and now you're a gazillionaire because of this NVIDIA stock, but you have to share it with the government. You're going to have to pay 30-something% of it to the government. That is painful. Well, there's a way to not have to pay it. There's a way to defer that payment or even to make it just go away. But to find out more, check out the interview I did with Robert Hendershot. It's in my YouTube playlist, a sponsors playlist on my YouTube channel, Robert Hendershot, and you can find Hendershot Wealth, that's Hendershot with 2 T's, .com/YBS. All right, Ayn Rand Institute, AynRand.org/start here. You can find information about ARI Campus, sorry, not ARI Campus, ARI Live, which is courses that are delivered live, but you can take them live or you can take them not live. You can ask questions or you can not. You can do the homework or you can not. Very, very scalable and adjustable and yeah, very customer friendly. So please, consider signing up. You'll learn a huge amount of objectivism and its application from some of the best teachers in the world. All right, let's do those two, and we'll catch up with the rest of our sponsors next time. I'll remind you, it'll be great if a lot of you who have procrastinated all year to become Patreon supporters of the Yaron Brook Show, i.e. monthly supporters, regular monthly supporters. If you've procrastinated in doing it, and I know there are a lot of you out there who think about it, you listen on your phone, and then it's a hassle to bring up Patreon and fill out the credit card information or whatever. Now's the time, right? Support your values. Sometime before year end, try to get it in. Try to get 5 minutes to go on patreon.com, sign up at whatever level you think appropriate. It goes all the way up to $1,000 a month. Maybe some of you can afford that. Maybe some of you think that is a value that I provide enough value to justify it. But please consider signing up to monthly support on Patreon. Let's see if we can do a real push here in the last week of 2025 to really start 2026 strong on Patreon and on PayPal. Super Chat looks super strong ending at the ending of the year. Let's try to make all the different avenues as strong, if not stronger. So yeah, don't procrastinate. Go sign up on Patreon. And by the way, at $10, you get the podcast free of commercials. At $25, you get to participate by video on the AMA. And you get to listen to the members-only shows that I do for YouTube members. All right, let's jump in with Andrew for $100. I don't know. Andrew must have gotten a year-end bonus. Andrew and Michael. Andrew says, either Rand was self-delusional or a cynic is wrong. Guess which one it is. She, negatives are unimportant. Evil is impotent. And never focus on pain longer than it takes to fight it. One can infer that the majority of her focus was on the positive, but a cynic claims the positive is unreal. Yeah, I'm not sure there's a question there. Yes, the cynic is cynical of anything, including the positive, right? Ayn Rand, look, it goes back to my comments at the beginning of the show. You only have one life to live. You got to make the most of it. To make the most of it, you got to focus on the positives, on the things that can be done, on the positive achievements you can achieve. They're going to be roadblocks. They're even going to be failures. You're going to fall flat on your face. You're going to screw up. You're going to waste time. But a focus on the positive means you get up, you shake it off, you do the mourning if you have to mourn, and you focus on the positive. You focus on what? Okay, what now? What do I do? How do I fix it? Or how do I do something different? How do I focus on moving ahead? How do I focus on achieving, doing something to pursue my values? And that should be 99.9% of your focus, of your energy, should be on the positive things that you can achieve, planning for those achievements, and doing it. Thank you, Andrew. Michael. The allegations emerging from the deportation of Venezuelan asylum seekers to El Salvador's CECOT prison are horrifying. Men with no criminal history were stripped of due process, sent to a country where they have no connections to, and subjected to abusive detention conditions. Yeah, we talked about this during the show. Absolutely horrific, absolutely absurd. The fact that there's so little in terms of opposition to this, instead of people upset by this. The fact that there's no congressional investigation. This is one reason why Republicans need to lose the House and maybe the Senate, so that they'll start doing congressional investigations of this. Bring it up and make it a focus. But all of ICE's abuses overall, ICE is a monstrous organization, a monstrous phenomenon. And the fact that it is being ignored by Congress is more support to the idea that Congress is making itself irrelevant. And if we get authoritarianism in this country, it's going to be to a large extent the fault of Congress. Where is Congress? Hearings about CECOT or about ICE's behavior. It's just unconscionable. I'm hoping the lawsuits address some of this and that they go to the Supreme Court. But in the meantime, this is exactly what Congress should be investigating. This is the kind of investigative powers that Congress has. And the fact that it's not is a travesty. Michael has a continuation. Thank you, Michael. 100 and then a 50. This represents a grave abuse of government power and a betrayal of the rule of law. Absolutely. No administration has the authority to disappear people into foreign prisons, much less ones known for brutality based on secret criteria and collective suspicion. Yes. And look, this is where if Republicans had any kind of principles and any kind of balls, they would impeach Trump. This is an impeachable offense. And again, I hope Democrats win the House and impeach him. And let senators, let's assume we got a Senate majority, Republicans have, let senators defend Trump on this issue. I want to see it from the floor. Which reminds me, I didn't mention this in the news, but a senator who I had some respect for, who I met once and saw speak live, and I was impressed with, a conservative senator by the name of Ben Sasse. He's religious, but he had a real respect for the Founding Fathers and a real understanding, I think, or somewhat of an understanding of the founding principles. And he seemed like a principled guy. He actually voted to impeach Trump after January 6th. And he ultimately left the Senate and became president of the University of Florida, and was there, and then left that position about a year ago because his wife was having health issues. Well, today he announced that he's just been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and he's basically going to die very, very soon. That is, he's basically dead, right? And really sad, because Ben Sasse represented, I think, some of the best within the Republican Party, at least the modern Republican Party, the post-Goldwater Republican Party. And he is gone, or is going to be gone soon. It just shows that screening for pancreatic cancer, you should screen, because if you catch it early, you can do something about it. Ben Sasse caught it when it was stage 4. You can't do anything about it. So screen for pancreatic cancer regularly, regular screening, annual screening for pancreatic cancer. Notch average algorithm. Can people go so deep down a hole of irrationality and hatred? You can't pull them out. Does this apply to cultures based on hatred? The only way German thinking could be shaken off homicidal mysticism was through total destruction. Is this the case with Gen Z and MAGA? Well, certainly it's possible that people go down the rabbit hole and they can never come out without being really devastated, like the Nazis were. But it's not inevitable, and it's not clear that that's true of Gen Z and MAGA. I don't know. You'd have to know more of them in person. Let's hope not. And I don't think it is. They're still young. They still have a chance for reality to correct their ways. Some of them are probably hopeless. Some of them, this will destroy their lives. And some of them will recover from it. In terms of, as a movement, it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves, how big it becomes, and does it attain power? As long as it doesn't attain power, then it's only attracting a small minority. And I think people can break out of it. In Germany, remember, it kind of attracted a huge minority and attained power, and then kind of controlled the world. And that was a high that was, I think, very intoxicating for people. Very intoxicating. Does this apply to culture based on hatred? I don't think it has to be based on hatred, although it could be based on fear and anger. A lot of it's based on fear and anger. Fear and anger, and of course, irrationality. It develops into hatred, but it doesn't start there. It starts with fear and anger. Those are the two dominant emotions that lead people down that route. All right. Oh, I forgot to thank the stickers. Anthony, thank you. It's 20-something Australian dollars. Mary Aline, thank you. Stephen Hopper, thank you. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have CP Melken, which is Jonathan Honing, thank you. I assume he doesn't mind me naming him. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the sticker, guys. I very much appreciate it. Adam, can collecting unemployment be morally justified? Yeah, sure, absolutely. You paid into it. Your employer did, which basically came out of your wages. So it's like buying insurance. The fact that it's guaranteed by the government, the fact that it's a government insurance scheme or whatever, you paid in. Absolutely, you should be able to take out. Andrew said, you said the bad libertarians are anti-civilization. Are libertarians also anti-individual rights? If pro-rights, wouldn't they support the need for protection of rights, a condition of which civilization depends? Well, I think at the end, anarchy is anti-rights. Anarchy is the recognition that you determine the law based on competition, not based on truth, not based on rights. You determine the law based on negotiations. penalties, justice is negotiated between justice agencies and so on. So there is no principled defense of individual rights. Indeed, what's his name? David Friedman, Milton Friedman's son, a well-known anarchist, claims there is no such thing as individual rights. It's nonsense on stilts. Brian Kaplan believes in individual rights and defends individual rights, but recognizes that under anarchy, they would not be consistently and principled defended. They would have to be negotiated. So what I mean is the anarchists undermine the very concept of individual rights by advocating for the absence of objective law, the absence of objectivity, and the idea that anything goes, and anything goes, and that one second, let me just read the question again. Yeah, anything goes and rights are negotiable. So that's the sense in which I meant it. Andrew, how do you view Kant's effect on the historical influence of Christianity? How might the battle of reason versus faith evolve without him? How might it have evolved without him? I don't know. It's so hard to tell who would have come instead, what would have been the direction philosophy would have taken. I mean, it was already taking a lot of bad steps. I mean, you've got Rousseau, you've got Hume, you've got what's his name, writes a nonsense on stilts, Bentham, you've got Mill. So it's hard to tell exactly which direction. It would have been bad, but different, less bad, I suspect, and reason would have had a better chance, because it wouldn't have been co-opted by the mystics, in a sense, made into a mystical concept, as Kant does. How does the view, I mean, the biggest effect that Kant has had is neutering reason. And that means more influence of Christianity in its secular and religious forms. And that, of course, Kant's influence on institutionalizing altruism and a morality of duty, which other thinkers took on and elaborated on and emphasized self-sacrifice, and led to the secularization, I think, of Christian ethics. Ian says, you should do a show where either yourself or a good economist speculate on the long-term effects of AI. If AI causes a massive increase in productivity and robots can do many manual human tasks, what does that look in detail? I mean, what you need is not an economist. What you need is a science fiction writer. What you need is somebody who kind of understands psychology, human needs. So, I mean, you're already seeing the effect. How many people today make a living as influencers, podcasters, entertainers on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or whatever? A lot. Now, these are things that you probably couldn't get AI to do. But, think of how many people are doing that. That's and that didn't exist 15 years ago. It was zero. 10 years ago, it was an insignificant number of people. And now, millions globally, maybe more, I don't know. So, you'd really have to have somebody who was who had the ability to predict these kind of things, I don't think you need economists. Economists will just say, yeah, jobs will be created. Where? I don't know. Markets will determine that. Economists can't predict which jobs, what it looks like. You need the imagination of a science fiction writer. Equal to reality. Merry Christmas, Yaron. Merry Christmas to you. Liam says, DNA is real, but ideas are not in your DNA. That's right. You're tabula rasa when it comes to ideas. When it comes to content, you have capacities. Your DNA determines your capacities, not the actual content. Hopper Campbell, is Stephen Bannon an anti-Semite? His ex-wife says he's a pretty vicious one. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know. I don't know enough about, Stephen Bannon used to be very pro-Israel. Now he's very anti-Israel, but I think he's just sensing what is required to move MAGA. Anti-Semite, I just don't know. I don't know enough about him. It wouldn't surprise me at all. He's the kind of personality there would be. Stephen, thoughts on the novel, silent movie, and musical Phantom of the Opera? Do you like Beauty and the Beast stories like Hunchback, Man Who Laughs, Frankenstein, Edward Scissorhands, etc.? Emotional, powerful themes to me. I think the musical of Phantom of the Opera is quite beautiful. It's really well done. It's a good story. It's a Beauty of the Beast, of course, type story. I haven't read the book, so I don't have anything about the book. The silent movie, I think I saw years and years and years ago. Quite well made and quite beautiful and touching. I do like Beauty and the Beast stories. I certainly like Beauty and the Beast. I love the Disney Beauty and the Beast. I think it's a terrific movie. Hunchback of Notre Dame is one of the great books. You should definitely read it. Watch some of the silent versions. There's a silent version with, I think it's silent, with, one of my favorite actors, Charles Laughton. Charles Laughton playing the Hunchback is really, really good. The Man Who Laughs, of course, is one of the greatest novels ever written. I'm not a huge fan of Frankenstein. It's more malevolent than this. Edward Scissorhands is fun. But yeah, generally powerful themes of monsters becoming beautiful, because beauty is who you are. It's your character. It's not how you look. Although in Beauty and the Beast, it's also how you look. But character is what matters. James Taylor says, what ideology overrides reality? Persuasion is over. When ideology overrides reality, persuasion is over. Yes, but most mystical ideologies, most bad ideologies try to override reality. It's a question of people letting, people engaging in evasion on a large scale, people willing to turn their backs on reality. Lots of people embrace bad and false ideologies for all kinds of reasons, but they haven't completely given up on reality so they can be brought back to earth. You're right. Once they give up on reality, there's no persuasion. Michael says, accountability is not optional. The Constitution does not stop at the border, and individual rights are not suspended for Trump's daily theater. It's true, although the Constitution does stop at the border. The Constitution does indeed stop at the border. The Constitution, the legal framework of the United States of America does not apply outside. What is true that people don't lose their rights outside of the border. Every human being on the planet Earth has individual rights. But whereas within the borders of the United States, the Constitution requires the government, in a sense, to protect those rights. It does not require the government to protect the rights of people outside of the borders of the United States. So the Constitution stops at the border, even if individual rights do not. And suddenly, the U.S. government arrested these people inside the border, shipped them to prison in El Salvador. The violation of the Constitution happened right here in America, in arresting them and shipping them over there. Just horrific. Andrew, Megyn Kelly is revealing is revealing dark premises. If she thinks interviewing someone who respects a mass murderer is okay because we all need to talk to each other or some sap, she's a coward complicit to evil. Yes, and she's definitely a coward complicit to evil. And she's being called out on it by Ben Shapiro and others. And she is lashing back out. And this is part of the essence of the fight between them. But she is revealing herself to be a very, very dark person, a very dark soul. Newly Dan. With Christianity, their duty to God has a reason, heaven. So duty creates a reason for obedience, but destroys giving reasons for it. Yeah, but a reason for obedience which is unknowable. The reason is unknowable. That is, the afterlife is unknowable. And whether it's true or not is unknowable. So it's asking you to believe in an afterlife on the basis of faith so that you have a reason to do your duty, which is one perversion on top of another perversion on top of another. Linda, Howard Fast, who wrote Spartacus, wrote a novel called Max about early days of Hollywood. I'll have to look that up. That would be fun. That would be a fun read, I think. I love Spartacus. Adam, looking for a new fiction book to read with an inspiring hero. Have you read all of Rand? Any recommendations? Can anyone even come close to Howard Rourke? Well, Atlas Shrugged has several characters that match up to Howard Rourke, Dagny Taggart and Reardon, Hank Reardon, and of course John Galt. But I don't want to give it away. But, so definitely Atlas Shrugged. We the Living has Kira, which is amazing. Kira is amazing. And Anthem. So all of Ayn Rand's books are worth reading. Absolutely. All of them. In terms of other authors, Hugo is the one that I would most recommend. Victor Hugo. If you want grand heroes in an amazing universe. The Rugged Communitaria. You claim to support unfettered competition and have said that the best ideas will win. If this is true, then why not allow the competition and platforming of ideas like Nick Fuentes? So I don't know what support unfettered competition means, right? So unfettered competition doesn't mean I should support my competitor. That is, unfettered competition doesn't mean that Apple should allow everybody who wants to put an app on the App Store. It has standards. And it says that, certain code is bad and can do damage to the phone, so it doesn't want that. It doesn't want pornography on the iPhone. There's a bunch of things it doesn't want. So you can't put an app on the App Store. Now, does that reduce competition? No, that's part of competition. Part of competition is the ability of Apple to do that. Nobody has an obligation, should be obligated to platform psychos. Ideas that are beyond, that are uncivilized and disgusting and horrific. Now, you have a right to do it, but nobody should. In a civilized society, nobody should platform Nazis. Nobody should platform racists. Nobody should platform communists. They're beyond the pale. And part of the competition is the fact that the people who own the platforms are competing against the Nick Fuentes of the world and saying no to them. That's part of the competition. Competition doesn't mean everybody has a level playing field. That's not competition. Competition doesn't mean we all start at the same point. Competition doesn't mean I need to provide my enemy, my competitor, with a boost. It doesn't mean give him a boost. Nick Fuentes' ideas suck. Sucky content should be treated a sucky content. Just the fact that a lot of people like it doesn't make it good. It sucks. So how do you treat sucky content? You ignore it. That's the best thing to do with the Nick Fuentes of the world. The only reason I need to talk about him is because idiots like Tucker Carlson platform him and give him a reach that and Piers Morgan that he does not deserve and he shouldn't be receiving. I am a huge advocate of canceling people. Like if you come to work for me and I discover you're a communist, I will fire you. I will not hire communists. I won't hire anarchists. I won't hire fascists. I won't hire anti-Semites. I won't hire racists. There are a lot of people I won't hire. I am a huge believer in a rational cancel culture. A cancel culture that's canceling people who deserve to be canceled, who hold despicable ideas. The problem with left-wing cancel culture of 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago was that they were canceling people for having reasonable ideas. They were canceling people for being rational. They were canceling people for being just middle of the road. And they were actually platforming the nutcases. But, I've said this from the beginning in terms of cancel culture. Yes, don't associate. You shouldn't associate with people you despise. No, they don't. They don't still do it. No, cancel culture, that kind of leftist cancel culture, is not happening. Not anywhere near the scale it used to. You remember that Google firing that guy who wrote that paper about women maybe not being quite as good at programming or something like that? It's not exactly what he wrote, but I don't want to try to recreate it. You don't see stuff like that happening quite as much. Silicon Valley's really changed, and so is a lot of the country. So no, I'm not. Again, cancel culture is part of competition. The fact that I have the power to cancel is because I've gained that power through competition. Of course, and competition is not the be-all end all of everything. Clark, could the Enlightenment have finished its job even if Kant had never come about? Isn't the Enlightenment itself an incomplete project regardless of opposing philosophers undermining it? Yes, Ayn Rand finishes the job, even post-Kant. So Ayn Rand is the one who finishes the job. It would have been good if it had been finished 100 years earlier. Maybe it couldn't have. Maybe it needed the Industrial Revolution. You needed that experience in order to finish the job. But yes, it needed completion. It was flawed. The Enlightenment was significantly flawed. Neo asked, what happened to Mossab interview with ARI? I guess he just didn't show up. I don't know beyond that what happened. As far as I know, he just didn't show up. But I don't have any inside information. Nobody other than that it didn't happen. I don't know more than that. All right, last question. Andrew, how would you answer an ANCAP who says that you must have a negative view of human nature if you think the rational group in society would lose in a pure competition without an authority? It's not an issue of losing. It's an issue of, the reality is that in a competition of physical force, it's not always, and where physical force is legitimized to be competitive, it's not always the rational that wins. It's sometimes the guy with the bigger gun. It's times the guy with the bigger muscles. There's enough bad people in society who can completely disrupt the lives of the rational people in ways that are very, very damaging and harmful. And that require then the rational people to engage in the kind of violence that they wouldn't want, that they're trying to not have to live with. The whole point of creating a civilized with the government is to avoid having to deal with the violence on a day-to-day basis. I could probably give a better answer to that, but I have to admit I'm tired. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Michael. You guys were great. Thank you, Not the Average Algorithm. All did 100+ questions. So I really, really appreciate that. I will see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow, it will be in the normal time. I apologize again about earlier today. I know some of you wasted some time waiting for me to show up. But anyway, tomorrow, 2 p.m. East Coast time. I will see you then for another news roundup, news shows. I'll also do some reviews tomorrow. Reviews. Shahzad, are you there? There will be reviews tomorrow. Yes. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye, everybody, and thanks to all the super chatters.